And we are live. And I'm going to start off with a confession. Literally 10 seconds ago, I was whistling, and I think whistling is one of the only crimes in the world that does actually deserve the death penalty. So I just felt like I should just air that out. So we only go uphill from here. And let me show you the first way we're going to go uphill. We are live here to chat about this week's television, particularly this week's great woman in television. So uphill number one, joining me, Kate and Carey. You guys, I'm so excited to talk about everything I have on the agenda this week. Those like a million lines, a million words. We're not going to get to it all, but we'll 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 do the important stuff. How were you this week?
Good enough. Good enough.
I was good this week. Good.
It has been a busy week. I completely feel you. Let me just say this is an iced limoncello LaCroix. There's no alcohol in this. I'm this obnoxious sober. We hate to hear it, but that's the truth. Kate, before I start talking about the interesting turn of relational events on The Flash, what news do we have for this week?
So we have I was looking to see how many episodes of Superman and Lois there would be this season. I think there's 15, but I did find out that David Ramsey directed episode 11, which is next week's episode, so I'm looking forward to that. We also got the announcement that Netflix's Persuasion comes out July 15th. I got to learn that Cammie doesn't know how to read a calendar when I told her that.
Oh, I don't. No, I really don't.
It was great. But it just makes you more endearing.
Does it?
And then we've all been waiting for it. We've all been super excited for it. Multiverse of Madness comes out next week.
That it does. And I'm just going to tell you right now. Often, well, usually for DC, but not usually for Marvel, but generally for DC, I somehow finagle my way into Wednesday night tickets. I have only done that for Marvel once. And thus far, we have not been able to be successful in that particular endeavor. So this time next week, it will be the night before Multiverse of Madness, and Kate and I will be going to see it the following day. But if I'm able to snag us Wednesday night tickets, deuces, you will hear from us live the following day or the following week or something. But if you see me next week, it's against my will. It's because I couldn't get us Wednesday night tickets. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Carey, you're too far away, but you'll be there with us in spirit.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't feel left out at all or anything, right?
I will listen. Come on over. I will get you tickets. You just ping me after tonight's show.
Just take your camera in there, live stream the bootleg, and it's all good.
I was gonna say this is what would get me blacklisted, but if I haven't been so far, I never will be. Let's be honest. We also have Stranger Things coming up.
Oh, yes. I did see the Stranger Things announcement and the hinted big bad being Vecna, and of course how that ties into Critical Role. I just was laughing on the floor, but it's all fun.
Let me tell you, when Stranger Things like season 1 first came out, like I knew it was based on D&D, and like you'll be shocked to know that my husband's into D&D. I know I'm a walking cliche, and so I started like telling him some stuff about Stranger Things and like who the Demogorgon, just a few like words from it, and he like fully explained to me like exactly what all of these characters would be in D&D and what fully spoiled season 1 for me, and like what the Demogorgon is, not realizing it because he didn't know that. Anyways, I think I've been spoiled on the entire premise of Stranger Things, but I forgot it. So we're good. like for the whole series, like how it would like naturally end in the course of like a D&D game, because it's like
Mhm.
all based on D&D apparently. And so far all these
Yeah.
spoilers have been right, but I also forget them. So we'll be all right.
Well, you do like to seek out spoilers, so it's not a surprise that you kind of took those and were like, I didn't want to know that, but secretly I did want to know that.
I always want to know. Yeah, always. I'll forget it,
Yeah.
but I want to be told. All right. Well, let's just dive right into it. Carey, I know you just got done watching The Flash, and Kate, I'm going to use some context clues to assume that you did not just get done watching The Flash. Is that right?
That is correct.
Well, I will pull Carey right up here into the hot seat. What did you think of tonight's episode? I am not going to lie, I actually really enjoyed almost every single scene. Bring me down to earth.
It just seems like obviously as you get toward the end of like any long running show, they just start bringing people back, right? So that tease there at the end was really I don't know, shocked, probably not the right word, but interesting to see and interesting to see where that story is going to go. Um, and then of course the grief monster coming back after 7 years, being essentially the embodiment of Ronnie's long love. I mean, that just seems like interesting stuff as well. So they're just bringing back all the hits. Apparently, I don't know who else might be on deck to be brought back, but it's just sort of nice to see some full circle stuff happening.
Absolutely. There were just a couple moments that I found were like, I don't know. I think if I like looked it up, there's probably some writer credited for this episode who has like comedic background that like actually resonates with me. I just found multiple lines actually funny in tonight's episode. Like when Frost was like, "We can't just wait around for evil bachelor to come give her a rose." I was like, that was funny. Y'all aren't usually that funny. Like that was a good one. That got a little chuckle. There were a few little just bits in there with Iris and Sue as well. The when Sue says, "Okay, like while we're waiting, let's like get a 5-course meal to eat at home," like this little comfort thing. There was a really cute little exchange between them where they're kind of acting like, "Oh, you're a bad influence," but then like, "Thank you." Like there was like this really cute like sincerity that was just like better acting, I don't know, than we usually see from a show like this. The one of the things that set this episode up for success is it was very like kind of cheesy, hokey horror film moments, but done in a good way. Like it really like when Deathstorm or whatever's like coming down and like trying to like take Caitlin as his bride or whatever. Extremely like cheesy, like 90s horror film type of vibes, but they really committed. And I believe she's done horror movies before. She appears to like she got the whole like melodramatic face going. I was like, this is kind of cute. Do I just have a good attitude today, or was it really cute?
I'm not gonna say I'm shocked, but you obviously like this episode a whole lot more than I did. I don't know. It's just it's like we all want to see Caitlyn happy somehow, and if that sort of means that she has to marry this sort of interdimensional black flame monster, it's kind of to the point where it's like, why not, right?
Like at this point, be his
I don't know.
bride. You know what I mean? Like at this point, like it's the Phantom or Raoul, and Raoul's dead. So like, what do anyways, I'm curious, and I don't think they're gonna do this because they appear to be like pretty committed to covering up her pregnancy. But when they were saying like there's this family of grief inside, and she's like touching her stomach a lot, and he's trying to like what I'm like, is she gonna end up like force impregnated with like Phantom Deathstorm's baby or something? Because that's a little dark, but like I could work with that, you know?
That's what I thought that they were going for when he first like approached her and like started the conversion process, whatever you want to call it. I thought that was
The
going to be
conversion
like
process,
what they were
the
gonna. Yeah,
corporate
I thought.
speak. I love that.
Well, I mean, I don't know what else to call it. He put his hands on her, and they started glowing. I mean, maybe in like Twilight that would have been sex, right? But
He said, we'll
I
circle
just
back
thought.
around to this conversion after we've wrapped up a few other deadlines and brought our budget up to
That will
speed.
not be the only Twilight reference that is made tonight. I just want to interject real quick.
Listen, Kate, not to jump around, but like obviously we're about to slide on over to talk about Superman and Lois. And Kate and I were talking prior to this about how like it's a very like 90s grunge, like Twilighty, whatever. And I don't know if that's just what was in my head, but while watching Flash, I was like, oh, they compared notes. Like Superman and Lois did it better, but like this whole like let's commit to a campy, cheesy, whatever thing, Flash absolutely did it this week too.
They revolve. They all work in sort of the same universe, so I'm pretty sure that could have happened. Absolutely.
Well, I was thrilled to see Eddie back. I know that's going to go nowhere. I know he's going to be evil because any man that's ever opposing Barry has to be evil. Any man that comes near any of Barry's angels must be evil, right? With that being said, it was just nice to like see him return because a that's a character that I thought was solid and they never really paid him dust. Like he died and immediately Iris had to be like in love with her little brother, and that's just like the worst grief process I've ever heard. But to each their own. But then in addition to that, like it shows that they're bringing somebody back that is related to her storyline and only her storyline. And that was just really thoughtful. Like I've appreciated her time with Sue. I actually haven't appreciated her time with Allegra. I don't think that that's like a good on-screen pairing. I actually really like Allegra, but I really like hate that whole like say boss every 5 seconds thing. That was written badly. That did nobody favors. But Iris and Sue, that's been a fun dynamic to watch. I'm using the term fun here loosely, but I have a residual good attitude from other parts of this episode. They played off each other well, and that was, for being stuck in a room and essentially doing nothing, they did a good job with the two of them. But bringing in Eddie like gives her some storyline to work off of, and inevitably, like in the end, they're gonna have some like super melodramatic and absolutely driest chemistry you've ever seen, reunion with her and Barry, but like, give her somebody hot to have a scene with for a while.
So here's the question, though: is Eddie basically sort of a manifestation of Deathstorm to whatever degree, sort of like he appeared to Caitlin as Ronnie, or do you think that this is some sort of embodiment of whatever sort of time sickness she's dealing with right now?
I think this is related to her time sickness, but I find your first theory funnier, and let me tell you why. Consider the irony of Eddie slash Ronnie slash whatever this manifestation is being, like romantically pursuing both Iris and Caitlin. And it's like the irony of that being the love triangle. Like they have the most elephant in the room love triangle potential you've ever seen on this show. Like they haven't capitalized on it, but they have the most obvious, like, this could be a love triangle if you really looked at it too long, with obviously Caitlin, Barry, and Iris, right? And they pick their lane. I respect it. Whatever. Like at least they committed to the bit. Props to commitment in the year 2022. You know what I mean? But it's funny that there would be like another. Maybe this is just funny to me. I'm easily amused today.
No, it will be interesting. There's some excitement to the show, so I'll give them that after I basically quit it for about a year and a half, 2 years. So
Absolutely
they're doing
fair.
something positive. Yeah.
Well, let's keep that positive train going. I also I don't know what's wrong with me. I would say there's something in the water, but there's literally nothing. This is just LaCroix, I promise you. I really liked Superman and Lois too, despite the entire episode's like tonality being like weird, campy, vampiric 90s grunge. Kate was also mentioning like MCR and Twilight, and I definitely see that too. Did this resonate with you, Carey, or was this like absolutely not?
Oh no, it was fun. I didn't have any of those thoughts. I'm a Star Trek guy, so it just sort of gave me like mirror universe sort of vibes. So that was what I was taking in. Um, it, I mean, I sort of like the most important thing that I liked about the episode, particularly the Bizarro World, is if you think about who Superman is, if he was in the world that we're in now, he would sort of be like that Superman was portrayed as. He wouldn't be sort of like keeping a secret. He'd sort of be like this quote unquote media darling, social media monster kind of a person who didn't sort of hide who he was. So I thought that was an interesting take on that version of Kal-El. So that was what stuck out to me most, and I thought that was fun.
Kate, what about you? I know that it wasn't just the tonality of the episode, but it was all. And Kate might be frozen, or that might just be me. Let me know. Nope, you're moving again. We fixed it. You had some thoughts about the episode aside from just kind of the commitment to the campiness worked for you and for me as well. What else did you like about it?
So we've had some like off and on issues with some of the commitment or the over the top or the aggressive of the teenager other than having with the Kent family essentially. And it was nice to see like at least some amount of payoff or like hinted payoff of what they're going for here. So seeing on the opposite side, basically getting to see how Clark and Hal were close brothers for a long time and seeing how that was actually a somewhat positive relationship for a long time until they were on opposite ends and how that betrayal affected him, Cal, or just seeing his relationship with Jonathan, and how that really affected Jonathan. And it's a very similar direction as we're going the original universe, but it's slightly different and far more extreme enough to kind of show Cal, hey, stop making it has to be like you're gonna push Jonathan away if you don't acknowledge that it was a mistake, it was an accident, he was doing things for what he thought were right reasons, etc., etc. So I think that storyline and the parallels that they very clearly drew were kind of payoff for some of the things that I at least was having issues with at first and was finally starting to buy into in recent episodes. The tonality was hilarious to me. I know why they did it. So there's this like very iconic interpretation of Superboy with it's from the 90s with the tight red pants, the oversized leather jacket. But I just every single was all black, very like 90s grunge, and it was the red filter. It was whereas Twilight is all the alternative flannels and jeans that we can have for days and the blue filter that's just like everything is blue. This was all black grunge, like MCR for days, and just red filter, and it was fantastic.
Jonathan's or Jordan
it.
or the curly haired one, his straightened hair, I lost my mind. His like straight. I'm old. I had to grow up in a time where boys actually did that. Please show some empathy.
I am not as young as you think. I do remember this as a thing. And I saw this and immediately went, what are they doing? So I saw him just, Jordan sitting there as a Gerard Way copycat and going, why? But I was fine with all that until they did the square thing. So for some reason, Earth is square and the pool balls are square. That completely took me out of it. The aesthetic choices were a choice.
The eyeliner on everybody. Proof that eyeliner makes everybody hotter. It really does. Okay, are you ready for the Cammie's toxic opinion of the week?
Go ahead.
Okay, Superman and Lois like fighting in Bizarro World, like how they're like aggressive and toxic and whatever. That was super hot. Thank you for listening. That's the end of my toxicity for the evening.
Mhm.
Agree? Disagree? Sound off.
I won't disagree, but I don't think I actively thought about it.
That's so healthy. I love that.
It's like old school, not soap opera fighting, but like Dynasty and those old evening soap opera shows for sure.
Absolutely. I found it really funny. Okay.
I
And then
also
go ahead.
I also just want to point out the timeline, the scope of time absent. What is time? Because in our world, he's supposed to have been gone for 30 days and 30 nights, but it seemed like he had been there for 2 days, maybe on the other side. So that didn't make any sense.
Time isn't real, and I'll prove to you why. That there was another line where I lost my mind, where Lois, I think it is talking about but John. She's talking about John, and she's like, blah 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 blah. He's barely 15, and it cuts to John's face, and in that moment, he looked like a 35-year-old man who's been on heroin for at least 5 years, and I just found that hilarious. Like, for all the world, looked like he could not possibly remember his teens, has not been a teen
Yeah.
since, the 90s.
Yeah,
He's under that red sun.
the guy
It
that
has an
plays
effect.
Say that again?
yeah,
He's under that
son
red sun.
having
It probably has some kind of effect. Time works differently on Bizarro World. Who
That's true.
knows?
None of them are wearing SPF.
exactly.
That's a good point.
It is interesting because the guy that plays Jonathan is actually a pretty good actor, and he's only a few years older than what he's supposed to be. When I started, I thought actually that he was supposed to be, but I think it was because of the earrings, the leather. I was like, what is happening here?
Your audio was cutting out just a little bit there, but I feel like I got the gist regarding like his age. It kind of like
Mhm.
it turns into this like weird robotic sound, which is honestly somewhat musical. It sort of sounds like the beginning of like a T-Pain song from 2012, a little bit.
The irony of the fact that as you explain that, it does it to your voice.
Maybe it's me. Am I the problem? I don't think I'm the
I'm
drama. Am I the villain?
not the villain.
Okay, which of you wants to go first on what else you watched this week?
You can go ahead, Carey.
Into the hot seat you go, Carey.
All right. I watched the second to the last episode of The End Game, and it seems pretty clear what the entire sort of season has been about. Sort of not spoiling a whole lot, but basically it's about essentially uncovering corruption, and you have to wonder. And well, you don't have to wonder anymore. It's sort of like, okay, we know, sure, this person had sort of terrible execution of her plan, but her motives were to uncover corruption at whatever cost, right? Isn't that what we always want? So it's sort of everything is sort of put in place in terms of what's going to happen or what we expect to happen in the finale. And of course, based on what they've done so far, there will be some sort of significant twist that happens. And so I'm looking forward to it. It's been a good season so far. So I've been enjoying that. Um, what else have I watched? I think I did tell you guys I've been on my season 1 and 2 Arrow rewatch. I finished up season 2 a couple days ago and decided to start season 3. I think that's where I'm going to end because season 4 still gives me bad feeling. So That is what I've been watching. What else did I watch?
Season 4 may marinate better with time. I will say there's a comment in the chat that you might appreciate as part of your Arrow watch. Stormy was referencing how Flash doesn't go further than the illusion of sex and says Arrow showed us the good stuff. Having just finished season 2 and started season 3, do you agree with that? I agree with the essence of what Stormy's saying. I really do. You're 100% right, Stormy. But also consider Imagine Dragons' radioactive sex scene season 1. Sometimes not all sex scenes are good, you know?
Well, I mean, let's be real. There was a lot of sex that happened on Arrow. A lot of questionable hookups, and by questionable I mean by like questionable people. But there was a whole lot of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they definitely did a whole. They handle relationships a little bit better on Arrow, good and bad, than I think they've ever done on the Flash. So I will say that.
It may
What's
be
the day?
sometimes more like I'll just say toxic, even though that's like an annoying general non-specific word. It may be a little more toxic on Arrow, but at least the relationships are more entertaining. You know what I mean? At least they got a feeling out of me.
Yeah, and of course it's going to make you feel bad, but in the season 3 premiere, Lila just gave birth to baby Sarah. So you could maybe shed a tear for her right now if you want. I mean, just watching that, knowing what happened, it was like, huh,
They were
nothing you
done
can
so
do.
dirty. Literally, so they like actually should have fixed that in the like Green Arrow and the Canaries sequel that they were going to do. It absolutely should have become
They did.
something where
They
the
fixed it.
say that again.
Well, at the finale of Arrow, there, she is back. It's just really messed up that she's here today.
You were kind of cutting out
Yeah.
there.
No, when Oliver
At the
recreated
end.
the universe at the end, yeah, he fixed that, right?
Yeah, but we never got the chance to like see her with like the Green Arrow and Canaries like next generation crew. Or am I forgetting? They never had like a young adult casting of her, did they?
I thought they did.
Wow, the memory is the first thing to go.
I just remember JJ and I remember a bunch of dudes.
I
Wait a second.
You had
I could
Wildcat's
be
kid and you
confusing
had
her.
Diggle's kid.
No. Yeah, I'm confusing her with the girl that gets kidnapped in that episode, the crossover, like the Mary's episode. That's supposedly what we're supposed to start season 1. That's what I'm. So no, they didn't cast like an adult version of Sarah, baby Sarah.
That's who I would have liked to see,
Right.
but they had enough of like next generation heroes to like form a
Mhm.
team. It's just Sarah would have been such a good addition. But apparently Batwoman is also Diggle's daughter. So like maybe that was the real Sarah all along.
The very last thing I'll say about my Arrow rewatch so far is like I said, I just started season 3, and Ray Palmer just showed up, and
Boo,
holy
tomato, tomato,
what?
tomato.
No. Here's the deal, right? I know exactly why you don't like him, but I swear, I mean, I love Legends of Tomorrow, and I loved what his character got to do on that show. But seeing him introduced in Arrow season 3, episode 1, and then the Ray that we got later on, wholly different character. Yeah, and
I'm sure it's a different character, but how he was introduced was like this really weird incarnation of Christian Grey, which is like I like toxic relationships and even I don't like that. You know what I mean? Like that. And then like if you were amongst those so fortunate to have been watching it live and seeing all of the like producers and writers talk about it, you'd have to see like a whole bunch of like 50-year-old producers trying to tell like a bunch of 18-year-old girls online that like Ray Palmer is how he is because like that's what girls are into and you just like throw up in your mouth. Anyways, it was a great time.
I only watched season 3 like as a marathon binge. I started before or after season 3, so to me it wasn't that bad because it was very obvious that wasn't going to be the main ship. I knew that, And it was interesting to basically get to see Felicity finally have the other relationship and see Oliver jealous. But I knew that wasn't going to be a thing, so I almost got to enjoy Ray for what he was outside of Felicity. But I'm sure if you were watching live and they just kept on telling you this is it for Felicity now, um, and the obvious lie that that is, then it would have been frustrating. And their dynamic was odd. Like I didn't love the dynamic, but I actually liked the character, and I liked the thing he represented for Felicity.
It was nice seeing Felicity be liked. I just wasn't crazy about the pushiness and the stalking or whatever. But again, I have an open mind. I'll accept toxicity in fictional relationships. I just didn't like the way it was like promoted and handled was so annoying to me at the time. I bet I would react to it so differently now. I've grown. I've changed. I have a thicker skin. I'm not as easily irritated, guys. Stormy says she hated Ray on Arrow. He was great on Legends when she did watch. And she was clarifying that, although Oliver did bring back baby Sarah, we didn't get older baby Sarah. Yeah. What a time. Sorry for hijacking your moment, Carey, but you did bring up some very interesting points that, raised some trauma for me.
No, I think that's all I had. And my appreciation for Ray was sort of separate from his sort of relationship. And I know it's hard to sort of like split that down the middle, but I'm just thinking about in terms of what his character could have represented, not just relationship wise, but just in addition to the show. He was more confident than I think than he sort of was like later on. And I think a lot of it had to do with, I think when they brought that character on, it was either going to be, and I could be wrong, I think they were bringing him on saying he could either be like a Ted Cord type of character who was like that whole Blue Beetle situation, or they could have gone like, because I think going with the Atom was sort of like plan B, which is why his suit looked more like Iron Man Jr. than the actual Atom suit, right? So I think they had some things that they had to shift around, and maybe some of that had to do with his personality, but certainly he was brought in for that season to sort of be a foil for basically the fact that Oliver and Felicity couldn't have a relationship. So yeah, there was going to be hate that was happening, and it was intention. So it is what it is.
Do you know who he did have good chemistry with? Speaking of our opening discussion of The Flash, in a crossover, he had a scene with Caitlin Snow, not Killer Frost, but Caitlin Snow. That was kind of interesting. I was like, hold on a second. Hold on. We might like this. But obviously, that would go nowhere. Kate, would you like to tell us what you watched this week?
So I watched episode 5 of Moon Knight. Spoilers ahead, I guess I should say. So if you don't want to hear it,
I don't care. Go ahead.
It was okay. So it was a continuation of like the halfway through of last episode, he gets shot and wakes up in the psych ward, and all the confusion follows. And we basically get the follow-up of that of him trying to figure out why he's in the psych ward, what the hippopotamus is, like all these different things. And it was a fantastic episode because what it essentially did was it was much like the WandaVision episode where she relives all of her trauma. It was very similar episode of this where essentially the two sides of his personality are fighting each other, trying to like go through their memories. And Mark, who was essentially the initial personality, is trying to hide from Steven the inception of Steven, like what caused Steven. So in my very, very limited knowledge of what DID truly is, I know that essentially it forms in childhood following extensive trauma and typically repeated trauma as a way to cope. And basically it's your brain protecting yourself from that terrible memory. So the Steven personality formed basically as a way to protect himself from his mother's abuse. He and his little brother went out and were messing around in a cave, and the younger brother got sucked away and was killed in this excursion, and the mother blamed Mark. In that reveal, they do something interesting where for a while you can't tell which brother is Mark. And I don't know, I haven't figured out why they did that. I keep thinking about it. So they alternate between which child actor was supposed to represent Mark. So at some points, the one was alive celebrating his birthday without his mother, and then at other points it was the other one. So I'm confused by that, and I'm still trying to figure out what that was supposed to mean. But the end result and the most important scene was essentially when he would lock himself in a room and his mother would come and find him, and you see the split happen and him become Stephen in that moment, speak with a British accent, clean up the room, just like deal with it as Stephen would. And it was a very fascinating analysis of how that happens in real life. Now, I don't know how accurate that is, but I think it was a really great representation, an explanation for what it feels like to deal with that kind of trauma, however accurate it is. Then within the confines of the superhero stuff, we get more we basically get to see Steven also understand how Mark is okay with killing people and why that happened, and actually see that Khonshu, the god that Mark serves as the Moon Knight, how he was actually kind of manipulating him and taking advantage of him as he was on death's door. It was a really great episode. There were things about Egyptian mythology, about psychology. It was really great. I love Hawkeye, but I would say this beats out Hawkeye, and it is, dare I say it, very close to WandaVision. WandaVision is still my favorite, but the intention of what they're doing here and the very clear through line of this was made very purposefully and very clearly written, like a lot of my favorite miniseries are, where it's basically taking advantage of extended playtime while still telling one coherent story. It takes full advantage of that really, really well.
That's really high praise. I know WandaVision, I mean, not just for you, but for all of us, WandaVision is up there. So for this to even be close, that's pretty impressive. I'm really excited to start it. I haven't started it this week, but I think I might start it this weekend. We'll see. Would it be, I know it's not tied to Multiverse of Madness necessarily, but would it be good to watch in the few days leading up to Multiverse of Madness, or will that mess me up?
You or in any way detrimental to us watching Multiverse of Madness. I don't think it really affects it all that much, unless episode 6 completely changes that. I don't think it will.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to watch it. Go ahead.
There are 6 episodes. Are there 6 episodes, or are there more than that? Or
from what I understand, episode 6 will be the final episode, which airs next week.
Okay.
They might introduce a third personality, or they might just continue to hint at it. So I've had it pretty much since the beginning of watching the show, had a theory that there's a third personality that neither of them know about. With talking with a person that I know that is actually a really big fan of the Moon Knight comics, it is established that he actually has 3 adult personalities and an inner child personality. So we'll see if that gets introduced, but I don't know if they will, because it's only one more episode. They might have just hinted at it.
Might that third personality be that quote-unquote infamous brother that was confusing to him?
That could be it, but so it's still all within one body. It's just the 3 different personalities, and essentially this is a very vast oversimplification, but each personality basically has a different morality and a different level of violence that they can condone. So Stephen is very much the pacifist, doesn't like violence. Mark is the ex military and now is a mercenary and serves Khonshu, and essentially the proposed third one is Jake or Jack, and he essentially is kind of like deeply ingrained in the underworld, like in the criminal world, and kind of has the most blurred morality lines. They have had some specific times where neither of them can fully account for some of the more violent things that they've done. And that's a big indicator that there might be a third personality. I don't know if there'll be a second season of this show. So if there's a second season, they might take more time to explore it. If not, I don't know. It just seems like there'd be a lot to explore, but also tying up the real world crime, like the villain of the series,
How
all in
long
one
are the
episode. But we'll see.
episodes?
They're like an hour long.
Okay.
I'm probably going to binge it when they all come out.
It seems like a really good binge show.
I think I'll get like less confused that way too. Like if I don't have the opportunity to forget between episodes.
There's not as many like loose ends or puzzles or confusing bits as there was with WandaVision, but there is a couple, like, if you're paying attention, through lines of things that don't make sense that they'll introduce, or like this one answer would answer everything, which can be kind of confusing. I've heard from other people that they thought it was confusing. I haven't found it all that confusing, but I don't know.
Well, I'm excited to watch it.
I
All
am too.
right. Well, let me explain to you how far on the floor the bar is for me in terms of what I've been watching. Have either of you been watching Selling Sunset? Just wondering.
No.
No. Okay. I love that you love yourselves. That's so good. The latest season just came out, season 5. And I marathoned all of it in the course of like 2 days. My last remaining brain cells were fighting for their life the entire time. However, I have a theory in a show that requires no thinking. I have a theory and I have a proposition for this show that I just want to like get out into the universe. And we're going to start with the proposition for this show. The show has ships. Every show I watch does. It's a reality show, but it's not a dating reality show. They're all like the richest, most awful people you've ever seen who sell like multi-million-dollar homes, right? Now, in this show, the realtors are all like really hot women, okay? Like very hot women. And the brokers, the people that are like actually holding the money bags, are 2 very not hot guys. Glad we're all on the same page here. One of the really hot women used to date one of the 2, they're twin brothers who own the thing. One of them used to date one of the guys, and now they're like best friends. But they're like, have you ever seen people who are like exes but are like still like uncomfortably close, where like everybody just like, it's like, what is this? What's going on? They've got that situation going on. Okay. She has kids. She has a kid already and she doesn't want more. He does not want kids. Okay. He is dating one of the other ladies who does want kids. His ex, the person he was originally dating, is married to a guy like 20 years younger than her. And he wants kids, but she's like, I think she's like 45%. Like she can't have it. Like she has like some frozen eggs or some situation, but like she's not sure if she wants kids. I propose a partner swap. Please understand how incestuous the dating already is in this office. So it's not even the weirdest thing you've ever heard of, right? Like these people, they don't live in our world. This would be the least startling. They can have some weird conscious uncoupling and recoupling ceremony, and it'd be like the least weird thing ever. Plus, there was just like weird vibes where like, okay, so the guy, the one who's okay, The guy's name's Jason. Let's just all give them names so we can be on the same page. Jason used to date Mary. They have a dog together. They refer to themselves as like the dog's parents. They throw birthday parties for the dog together. The dog lives at like both their houses. It's so weird. It's uncomfortably close. Okay. Jason was then dating Chriselle. Chriselle wants kids. Mary is married to Romaine. Romaine wants kids. All couples involved have like crazy bad problems, like do not get along, fight, tears, drama, partner swap. That's my humble proposal. I'm not an expert, but in many ways I am. Okay, here's my theory. This show has a villain. She's not a good villain, okay? She's just not. Like, she thinks she's a good villain, but she's not funny. She kind of talks like the best way I can explain it is like, have you ever seen those like Facebook greeting card memes where it's like some like weird screenshot of a meme and like greeting card style, and they're like, my husband's so annoying, blah, blah, blah. Or just like weird, like hate your life memes that sounds like something a 45-year-old would like post if their name was like Cynthia and they live in like the suburbs of Oklahoma. Do you know what I mean? No, I'm getting some no's. Just please understand, they're not funny, okay? They're not funny. None of her jokes. However, she wants to be like the villain. She wants to be the funny one. She's consistently telling people she's funny. Like, she's like, I'm not mean, I'm hilarious. I have a theory that she's actually a really bad person because last season, like, okay, first of all, she's like mean to the girls, but like, whatever, who cares if she's mean to the girls? Like, it's for a reality show. Like, I don't think she's a good villain, but I don't like that doesn't make her bad. Last season, however, they had a realtor come on there who was like formerly on like a soap opera in Mexico. English was not her native language. She did not speak English very well. And like, this villainess just instantly preyed on her, tried to turn her into her pawn, manipulated her, and just tried to basically like treat her like she's her little like servant. It was a little uncomfortable, but she tried to make it seem like she was her bestie and she was helping her. She did the same thing this season, but this season it was like, oh, but she's not preying on somebody like, weak or whatever. This is just some like chick from London. But then I started like listening between the lines. This girl fakes her London accent. It became kind of a joke all season. She doesn't have a London accent. She's covering up a Nigerian accent, and Christine does the exact same thing to her. She preys on her. She like turns her into her little pawn. She gives her these little lies and tries to make her look bad instead of Christine looking bad, whatever. And I think she's actually genuinely bad. I think she actually genuinely tries to pick out the like weakest or most vulnerable girl in the room and use her as a pawn. Thank you for listening. That's the end.
With any villain, you just have to always wonder what their end game is, right? So what would that be? Just chaos?
Well, she says that she wants to look like Ivanka Trump, so I think we can put together what her end game might be there. Anyways, thank you for listening for my partner swap proposal for these terrible people and my theory that one of them is actually genuinely bad. I did also watch This Is Us. It was Kevin's episode, and it's where they find out who he ends up with, and it is with great regret that I tell you that he gets who he wants. However, I like her. Her name is Sophie, and I want her to be happy. And for some godforsaken reason, Kevin makes her happy. So I win some and I lose some. The loss is that Kevin has happiness that he doesn't deserve. He should live in misery forever. But Sophie gets to be happy. So we come out at a net neutral, and the only real loser is me, right? Right. Nobody has found any part of this funny. It's like Like how nobody found any part of Christine's jokes for the last 5 seasons of Selling Sunset funny. Oh, Stormy in the chat says she has watched Selling Sunset. Love that for us, Stormy. Do you think Christine is done with the show because she didn't do the reunion? I think Christine's fired from the firm because she probably also lost her realtor license because she broke the law. Like, it wasn't just like a funny ha-ha joke. Like, she tried to bribe a client who had a signed contract with somebody else. She tried to bribe her away. That's illegal, folks. Like, there's cameras. Do you not like, you lose your whole realtor's license? And I know she's like married to a rich guy and doesn't care, but like, that's like, she has to be fired. What are they going to do? Employ a non-realtor? Like, is she going to be their secretary? Yes, I do think she's fired. And what she has started afterwards is some like be your own boss realtor thing where she's neither a realtor nor a broker because she can't be a realtor or a broker because she broke the law. Listen, I feel so solid in my belief that she's genuinely a bad person. And I feel like the signs have been there all along and people just thought she was like a tee-hee mean girl, and she's not funny. And has not been funny. Stormy says, I saw it being so. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Please respond to Selling Sunset. Nobody wants to talk about this with me because it's trash.
No, it wasn't going to be a question about Selling Sunset. It was going to be a question about This Is Us. But go ahead.
Oh, yes. This Is Us is even better. Go ahead.
So this is the last season, right?
That's right.
And how many episodes do they have left?
4, I think. 4 episodes left.
Okay. The reason I ask is because I would be interested to hear from you. What do you think? Sort of like, end game is the wrong word in the show, but where does this show have to get to its end point? And also, wasn't there like an episode like a couple seasons ago where they did sort of like a flash forward, so they sort of got an idea of where things end up? So is that just sort of what we're shooting for, or is it going to be something different you expect at the end?
Great questions. So question number 1, what is endgame here? I think endgame is just seeing like where the big 3, where the triplets all land and everybody else around them. So for the past season, they've kind of been rotating whose episode is centric. So you'd kind of have like Kevin, Kate, Randall, like each, whatever. So we just came off a cycle of Kevin, Kate, Randall. But in between, we sometimes get somebody else centric. So we got like a Madison centric episode. That's the mother of Kevin's kids. Next week, we're going to get a Miguel centric episode. That is their mother's current husband, so their stepfather. And after, I think that since there's 4 more left, I would imagine we're going to have like a Miguel one and then probably 3 more like one-offs that are like mixing Kevin, Kate, and Randall, not just like, one more cycle. I don't know if that makes sense. But it's probably going to end with Rebecca, their mom, dying. That was what's kind of shown in the flash forward. Now, when they've shown flash forwards, they've kind of like done some cute take backsy type of stuff. I'll give you an example of that. I mentioned that Kevin ends up with Sophie. So in one of the flash forwards, we see him seeing her at a wedding, and she's arrived at that wedding with her husband, like she's married, and so it's sort of implied that he can't end up with Sophie because she's married, as if he's not a bad enough person to cheat, by the way, but whatever. Let's just set all of that aside. But she was actually divorced, so it was just sort of like the visual, they kind of try to trick you into something, but once you actually get into the scene, you realize it is not what it appears to be. So we see in a flash forward Rebecca dying and her family kind of all around, at the house that was built for her, blah blah blah, that Kevin, credit where credit's due, Kevin has built this house for her, arranged for it to be built, and most likely we're going to see her pass surrounded by her family. Very lovely. I don't think that that's a fake out. I really don't. Like, she is older and has lived a full life, and there isn't going to be some like weird oh, surprise, she's actually fine. It's just a matter of like where all of the kids and grandkids end up, basically.
How far in the future was that? And the reason I ask is because I'm wondering if that could be what what prompts Kevin to be a better person, or maybe that just can't happen.
You know, they have Kevin on something of a redemption arc now, but it hasn't really like changed or updated like his character traits. It's only changed like what he's trying to do. And I'll try to explain what I mean by that. He you know, he was acting, but he's not been a very successful actor, so he has to like find another job. And he starts to invest in like real estate development basically. So he has a housing, you know, building company, but they try to make it seem like he's doing charitable stuff where he hires like veterans, people who struggle to get employed, which is really good and touching, but it isn't his idea. He actually pushes back against it initially. There's a woman named Casti who has to push him to do so. And it's only when he realized that they are really excellent labor that he actually ends up like coming on board and then like starts to do this like as if it's a charity thing. But it was like, so his actions become good. He turns it around. He starts doing this cool, you know, program that's helping a vulnerable population, but his character never led him there. Like he genuinely had to see it being profitable first. Like same thing with Sophie. He, you know, his actions of like being committed to somebody have kind of improved, but it's not been for some sort of like selfless reason. It's because he wanted to be with Sophie. He's always wanted to be with Sophie. He's supposedly liked her since she was little, and it's very sweet, but that's not like a giving selfless thing, you know? I don't know. It's hard to explain, but like I don't think they're going to fix him. I think they've done as much like fixing as they're going to. And I think he's supposed to come across as this like flawed person who does good and who does bad. But every single one of his actions that's good is still ultimately selfish. And I know I'm seeing this through like a bit of a bias, but like I feel the same about Kate as well. He's not the only character that's in this position in my mind. He's just the one that is the most I guess childish about it, whereas Kate is the most like stubborn and illogical about it. And then Randall has his flaws as well, but they are more than compensated by the fact that he is giving, he's a leader, he takes responsibility for his actions, you know, takes care of his family, blah blah blah. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Stormy says she thinks we're going to see Rebecca and Jack reunited in the afterlife. That's really cute. I like that. I don't know if we will, but that would be really sweet.
Here's a downer.
Yes.
What if we find that Rebecca's the mom, right? What if we find out that like all of this was she sort of like died in childbirth, and like this entire show has basically been like Jack's imagination?
Stop. That's so dark. But then Jack dies. Maybe it's one of the kids' imagination.
But no, I'm just saying, like, from like that hospital that night, from like the grief, he just sort of like sinks into like this. I don't know, wouldn't call it a coma or something, but basically he just has this sort of like dream, I guess is probably the best, most accurate way to say it, but sort of has this dream about what their life could have been, right? I'm pretty sure that won't happen, but yeah. I mean, the show's about waterworks, right? That would probably do it.
That would do it. That's an interesting like approach to it. They've done so many like tricky things aren't what they appear to be type of stuff. Like it's certainly possible. I definitely think they're just going to end on like something for, you know, the waterworks. And I'll fall prey to it. Watch me. Like you've heard me complain about, you know, these characters, and then I still watch these episodes and I'm like actively rooting like for not the characters I dislike, but for the characters I like. Like I was rooting for Sophie. I thought that was really cute. They did such a fake out too. They did a good fake out with Sophie where, you know, there's like three women and it was like Kevin trying to decide between three women, which like immediately gag. But they had Sophie go first in the episode, and then they had the wedding singer go second, and they had Cassidy go last, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be Cassidy, and then whoop, pivot.
I haven't watched since season 1, but I know I'm going to, because I probably won't be able to avoid the finale. I'll watch it anyway. Sort of like I watched the Supernatural finale, even though I hadn't watched the show in like 12 years. I'll end up watching it.
Somebody needs to make a supercut of this show that only includes Beth and Randall Pearson's family. So it'd be like a third as long. You can marathon through quickly. I guess you could achieve the same end by simply forwarding everybody else's scenes, but the Beth and Randall Pearson family, immaculate. Would watch just for them. But I do watch just for them. We are 7 minutes over time. Thank you for humoring me on my trash television rants. I will see you same time, same place next week, unless I'm able to procure Doctor Strange / Scarlet Witch movie, but mostly Scarlet Witch movie tickets. Till next time.